going back to Andy Diller, how you spend your days does, or of course, how you spend your life. And how I spent my days in there, I literally consumed myself and everything that I explained to y'all. And this isn't just days. This is year after year after year. I also do what I do for the victim who passed away. If his life was lost, if he would never come back, then it'll be a waste for me to come out here and do the same crap that I was doing.
And it doesn't erase anything, but it makes whatever has happened to have a significance, not prideful one, but a significance that touches other people, so the significance grows.
I just wanted to make sure I acknowledge that so people won't think that I'm seeking pity for myself and look at me, boo-hoo. No, I'm saying, look, this is a reality of my life. This is what happened. This is my background. But let's intervene for the next children. So there won't be a next Jonathan or the next victim like mine or the other victim that my old friend killed. So it's a journey.
Hi, I'm Joshua Rodriguez. I'm the founder of the Free J-Rod podcast. So you most likely heard of our story through the viral TikTok video of my brother coming home from prison that's gotten 50 million views on TikTok and attention from people from all over the world. Or you may have heard of our story through Univision National News and CNN International News that broadcasted our story of inspiration and how Jonathan led me to my successes in becoming an engineer for NASA. Whatever the case is, welcome to this new episode of the Free J-Rod podcast where Jonathan will finally be able to tell his story of redemption. But before we get started, I really want to thank everybody that's been showing love. Our entire Eastside community, our Houston, Texas community, our TikTok family, especially those that signed the petition, those 1,400 people that made this very day possible. Because without y'all, Jonathan would still be in prison today. And without y'all, we would not be living life in color right this moment. So thank you. So our third guest in this podcast is one of my greatest career mentors and professors, Dr. Karen Hathaway, a Rice University doctorate graduate who has been working as an English professor at San Jacinto Community College since 1969, making her the longest running professor in the college with over 50 years of teaching experience. She has been of great help along my journey in trying to bring my brother home from prison, and Dr. Hathaway's profound insight and vast knowledge make her the perfect guest for Jonathan to sit with, sharing his inspiring story and allowing her to interpret it through the wisdom that she's acquired over her long life. Lastly, if you're moved by our content, feel free to subscribe.
A lot of people have been asking why I'm in prison.
Okay.
So I feel like getting it clarified why I was in there. And then two is to help them understand the background story without justifying or making excuses. But it also clears up the way of why things happen. It's like a lot of us just are so bound to just attack that person that did a crime, but it's like, what happened in the past? Was he getting bullied at school?
Right.
Was his dad beating him up every time he went home? So by understanding that, then you understand also why the crime happened. But like I said again, it's not to excuse or justify it. Mm-hmm. Well, my side of the story that I understand about my parents is that they came as immigrants from Mexico. So from what I know now, because of what I've studied when it comes to like psychology, sociology, certain things that I've got exposed to in library books in prison, is that I started asking different questions about what is it to raise a child and also an immigrant. Mm-hmm. And my parents didn't know English, so now they're teaching us their ways. Mm-hmm. And then not only are their ways, but also the things that they're affected with when it comes to our grandparents. Mm-hmm. So you got two people that are not even from the United States trying to understand this land at the same time trying to raise children. Right. And then children that are learning English and then the United States ways. So it's like now it's a conflict amongst the household because of that. Right. So a lot of first generation Mexicans can actually understand that. Or I guess you could say other immigrants as well. I didn't know how hard my grandpa was towards my mom or even my aunts and uncles. I didn't understand. I never asked that question. All I saw was a mother that was always just like angry and just lashing out, doing things that like a child should not see. Like, I mean, I love my mother now and I don't want to talk down on her. But and we could play the blame game, but at the same time, I could blame them, but then they could turn around and blame my grandparents, and then so forth. So Now as an adult, I can cut that domino effect off by coming to realization and saying, you know what, this is where we cut it at. But we got to cut it by understanding. And this is what I'm trying to. So she was always lashing out. There was times where I wake up and she's screaming because my dad's like just drunk again. And I'm terrified because I can't stop my dad from being on top of her. She would like, we would be like in a family ride, and I don't know why, but this particular time that she acted like she was gonna jump off the car. I remember as my siblings screaming, myself screaming, because she was literally opening the door acting like she was gonna throw herself. Whether she was serious or not, it was scary. So seeing those things affected me. And then my dad was always so much into work. And then people that are workaholics are worshipped. But now as an adult, I ask myself, what about your responsibilities when it comes to a father? Because that's where he neglected me at. Where he got so focused at work that he never paid attention to me. So not paying attention to me, it created me like being alienated from him. So having that issue at home was like huge for me. Like it was big. And my understanding, you see almost the same patterns when it comes to a father's not involved. Like he'll start becoming like sad. He excludes himself. And then this exclusion also creates a lot of anger. And all these different typical behaviors start rising up. And that's what behaviors you start seeing in me. So my understanding as a child is my parents don't love me. Right? First off, my mom never sits there and tells me, looks at me in my face and says, I'm proud of you, I love you. None of that. My dad, especially not. So now I'm excluded from that. Now I'm growing angry. And now I'm doing things that like, whether it's hitting my siblings or, doing stuff that was causing a lot of discipline for my parents. And that's became pattern. Go home, get disciplined because I just did something, and cry myself to sleep, and over and over. And my dad got so bad. I remember the first time he hit me, he almost cried. But eventually hitting me was just a typical thing now. And then he starts hitting me to where he feels like if he hits me harder, I'll change. So now the hitting, it starts to change. My mom's ways of disciplining me is like grabbing me and carrying me and threatening me that she's gonna throw me outside of the house so I could live with the dogs. And I'm a little kid, I'm so young that my mom was able to carry me. So that is one of the memories that always stood to me. So every time that she'll talk like mess to me or she'll look at me, I just saw that image, and I felt like I hated her for that. Like, and as I started getting older, her hits didn't hurt no more. So I'm just like, well, you're gonna hit me? So now she started hitting me, but it didn't hurt me no more. And my dad's hits would always hurt. I mean, grown man. So, but my pride would rise up, and my dad didn't have no shame. If I'm in front of a few friends or cousins, he didn't care. If I said something back, if I did something that he felt like it needed to be take initiative, he's gonna hit me in front of everybody. It's either a punch or it was embarrassing. So for me, I used to stand up in front of him, in front of everybody, and start cussing him out. Now I'm angry, like I hate him for that. And one of the last straws for me when it created this was the beginning of actually tearing myself off from him, was the day he said, hey son, let's go kick a soccer ball. So for me, it was like, whoa, my dad's finally invited me to kick the ball. So I'm running out, and we got this soccer ball, we start kicking it, and it easily becomes into a disciplinary lesson. He's telling me kick it a certain way, I'm not kicking it like that. And well, because I can't, I'm barely learning. And he starts hitting me. He's like, hit it right. And then he starts hitting me again. And I can't get it. And it's a simple move where you hit the ball from the bottom and it flicks up. And he kept hitting me over and over until I said, man, I cussed him out right in his face and I ran. And that was it. That was it for me, ever trying to help him, ever caring for whatever he lesson or whatever he had to provide. I didn't care anymore. So now that he is working, constructing, because he started constructing a reception hall, dance hall for 15s and all that, I will see him busting his butt for that. And he would always ask me for help. I'm like, no. Like, I would cuss him out. So he would start disciplining me for not helping him out. or making me feel bad because I'm not helping them. Yeah, certain times I did. That was only to get my way to go out, but I didn't care. I was like, hey, you're sweating your butt off. You're struggling. It's okay. That's you. I don't know you. I don't care for you. So I felt like I hated him. I hated my mom for whatever she pushed me to. She used to use my dad as a way to, hey, he acted like this, hit him. Now he's hitting me. Even my sister took it, or sometimes my siblings would take advantage of that too, and they'll scream and do whatever they had to do. To even where I was in prison, I would have nightmares where back to when I was a kid and she's pointing my finger at me and my dad's hitting me and I wake up with like rage. But that was the mindset at the time. I'm saying like not now, but it was this angry kid now. This kid that felt like the whole world was against him. This kid that his own parents, I go to school simply because, and even at school I wasn't even like paying attention, but it was a getaway from the house. So it was amazing for me, like, let me stay out. And I would walk back from, no matter what school, how far it was, I would walk home because I didn't want to get home. I would walk slow from North Shore Senior High to Cloverleaf every day almost, just walking by myself. And it felt so good just taking my time. And then getting hit at the same time because I come late. So it was like an on and on thing. So eventually, well, this is where it kind of starts transitioning back, towards the crime that happened. So now I hate being home. This kid is angry. He feels like the world is against him. As adults, we look at something like that and we're like, come on, really? But is it really? Is it really whenever you're a child? Is it really whenever you're ignorant? Is it really when you grow up in a neighborhood where there's nothing but bad stuff going on? In a neighborhood where you get used to seeing people getting stabbed or prostitutes running from cars because they didn't pay, or all the above. Is it really when it comes to it? As adults, we could say that, but as a child who was 15, 14 years old, so I get some people saying like, not all 16-year-olds think like that. It's like, hey, you're speaking over everybody as if you grew up in the neighborhood in the circumstances that I was, as if you grew up in the household. Yes, 9 times out of 10, we come out messed up, and there's that 1% that could come out right, but it's 1%. So this transitions to me being in the streets now. Now I'm sneaking out of the house. We actually always looked alike, so I would carry him, put him in my bed, because my mom would check up on me every night, and I would cover his face for like this much, so you could see just his head. So she will only see him, and a lot of times I tricked her until she finally caught me, but that was my way of sneaking out. What would I do sneaking out? I started hanging out with a certain guy who was actually my co-defendant, who lived a block away. I knew this kid was no good. It was the first time I ever met him was in Cloverleaf Elementary in 1st grade, and he was getting pulled by the hand by a principal because he had a knife, and he brought it to school because he said he wanted to kill somebody at school. So you were talking about a kid who's also going through almost the same thing I'm going through, but this guy is even more intense. This guy is from the very beginning wanting to kill somebody. That's when I met him. He had a knife in elementary school. So I started hanging around with him after I started getting detached. And then years later, I started detaching myself from the family, from the house, and I started roaming around the streets. Well, it just so happens that he lives a block away. So I meet him, and he's burning bushes, creating havoc, and I join him. That was the first time feeling exhilarated, and then something like a sense of joy whenever we started getting these big old branches filled with fire and property that's not ours, and then running when we hear the firefighters. That was the beginning of the adrenaline rush. Some people find scapegoats on different things. My scapegoat was adrenaline rush, where I'm running from cops, and I feel like joy and happiness, and I forget all the stuff that I'm going through. And that, it became me, where like, little by little, him and I started hanging out. And then we started, and then wasn't with him, because I started hanging out with people like him as well. So we started breaking windows in Halloween. We went from slingshots, hitting cars, lasers. We'll put lasers on traffic when people are driving by. Now I think about it as dangerous, but at the time it was funny, like how these cars would stop and try to find out who was doing that. And we were hiding behind the bushes. Joshua was there a few times. And then it started turning into BB guns. So now these BB guns are actually the form of a gun now. And now squirrels are getting killed. Now birds, we're shooting everything, anything. So now you have this kid who is angry and he's feeling this adrenaline rushes. And now I'm hanging out with this guy who is slowly but surely heading more and more into more darkness. I'm at this point, I'm going to nothing but what you call quinceañeras, which is a celebration for 15, typical for Hispanic communities. But I'm all into them. Like, I love dancing. I always was into that. So a lot of times that this guy would always invite me to go rob somebody or steal the house. A lot of times I would say no, because I'm in a party. But whenever he did invite me, sometimes that's when I did go. And I would take pride in how I formulated everything, and the brains of the operation. He was the muscle, because this boy was always big. So we were what we call in the typical neighborhood, we call that kicking doors. Let's go kick door. And kick doors for us was, so we're gonna go inside a house. But the adrenaline rush for me was going in there and knowing that maybe one day I'll get shot. But eventually, as we started stealing from houses, we also started finding the weapons. So that's and also we were influenced on getting weapons, because when we used to walk from one side of Cloverleaf at 2 a.m. to the other at 4 a.m, we will always get a gun pulled out to our faces. So we said, we're not doing that no more. We're not gonna sit there and be quiet when they point a gun at us. We're gonna start shooting back. So now we're stealing houses with the intention of finding weapons. Now you have this kid who has been alienated, he alienated himself from his family, hated his parents, and then going to the neighborhood where I'm hanging out with this guy, and we start stealing houses. And now this guy's doing it over and over. So I'm also in the parties, and he's constantly doing it, to where he's like, hey, come over. And he'll open up a box and just filled with guns. And he's like, look, you choose whatever you want. And I will just choose it. It's like, hey, it's yours, free. So I'm amused now. Now we're doing this. Now we're starting to get more and more serious. And eventually we became those people who were pointing guns at us. We started doing that to other people now. So I'm sneaking out of the house. We start robbing people. So now my intention was not even to actually get money. It was more like the adrenaline rush. So we're stealing, we're doing things, we're robbing. We're constantly walking out on the streets, 2 a.m, 3 a.m. The first one that I did was like a prostitute. We put the gun on her face and she started crying. And for me, it was like amusing. For me, it was funny. Like, I was always a funny guy, but even at situations like that, I was like, it was pretty evil, where I would like just make fun of them. Just basically, just like everybody says, hurt people, hurt other people. Yeah. That was just me. Hurting people because I was hurt. Is that justified? No, of course not. Is that excuse? No. So eventually we rob a certain person, and this is actually what happened that day. It's 2 different days. There's a homeless man riding a bike towards us, and he sees me, but because he saw me, he already knew me, because I already robbed him before. So when he saw me, I saw the terror in his eyes. And I was like, yeah, it's me again. So this man runs, he leaves the bike and he takes off. And my friend gets in one knee, points a 12-gauge shotgun at him and shoots, which he hits him right in the butt. And he starts screaming. And he's just hopping around, and I'm just like laughing, watching him. And he takes off running. And then when I hear the cops and everything, I take off running. So the next day is when the actual murder happened, where there was a man walking in his apartment complex. He thought that he knew my friend because we all had bandanas. So he went up to him. He's like, hey, is that you? And he's like, yes. He's like, well, he said, you got drugs? We asked him, you have drugs? He's like, yeah, I do. I said, I do have drugs. So we're like, all right, come over. And when he sees that my friend's not his so-called friend, like, he puts the shotgun in his face. He throws himself on the ground. We started searching his pockets. It was 3 of us. And the only thing that me and the other guy that did not kill him found $40. So we only found $40 in a lighter. And whenever the main one, he said, I'm going to kill him in Spanish. That's why the other man was African American, so he didn't understand what he said. So he put the shotgun right above his head and he shot him. And he left, he ran off. And I just, for me, in that instant, it was like, whoa, like, it's just like a loss of a life, which is like a little bit less than a foot away from me, was just, yeah, I can't even explain it. But even to this day, if I recall even the sound, because the sound is something that is always going to stick with me. It's crazy because I forgot a lot of things when it comes to certain people, memories, but that is something that is like I just heard it seconds ago. And just like a bucket of water and just pouring in the floor. But this isn't a bucket. So that was like what blew me away. And in that instant, I said, this isn't for me. So although I was still going through a lot of crap at home, now I'm applying myself at school. Now I'm paying attention. Now I'm not the class clown. I'm actually paying attention. I've started getting higher grades. I realized that I'm actually smart. And I was just blown away how smart I was. And I was like, what? But the thing about it is everything was already rolling. Justice needed to be served. But we did get away with it. But a month later, he ended up murdering somebody else that was 16, just like us. This is where the confusion starts with their family, because their family said that I had something to do with that, but I didn't. And I always told them, like, go to the courts. You can listen for yourself what the judge talks about and what they don't talk about. And you'll see that they will never say your cousin or your nephew's name. But that's another story. But he ended up murdering this person for $15,000 and for bottles of liquor. That was it.
That was it.
Yeah. So he murders him. He gets caught because all evidence points back to him. And there's another fourth guy that we used to hang around with. He was the one that testified. Well, I believe that it was his parents. He told his parents, and they called the cops. And that's when they told the cops, like the detectives, they said, hey, this murder that just happened is not the only one that he's done. A month ago, somebody else got murdered. And I was like, what, really? So that's when we came in the picture. So now I find myself in a juvenile. They arrest me. I try to save his life. I try to justify it. Try to lie to these detectives so I could help him out. But, well, at least for the first, the other one had nothing to do with it. Yeah, that's when they came for me. On Osher Senior High on the 11th grade, I got arrested. And now I'm facing, I didn't know how serious it was until I hit the juvenile. But the guy that came in, he said, to serve my case, he's like, hey, you know what you're here for, right? He's like, no. He's like, if you kill, exactly his words. He said, if you kill the president, you'll get the same charge. And he just closed the door on me. So I ended up knowing that I had a capital murder and aggravated robbery. A capital murder in itself, alone, would give me 40 years at least, and then up. And the aggravated robbery is from 5 to 99. And that's where I'll start fighting my charge. But that's basically clarifying to those people that have asked why I was here in prison.
As you think back of that, was there any place where, or any person or situation that gave you an option out?
An option out, like as in like, so I could...
To leave that?
Out of all people, I was in the streets so much that there was a police, I forgot his name, I wish I would have known, I would have said his name right now. He would stop me every once in a while and he would try to give me advice. He'd always try to give me hope. And he's actually the one that when they arrested me and they placed me in a holding area, he was in a computer and he looked at me and I see how crushed he was, because it almost looked like he felt like he failed. Because out of all people, it was a police that would stop me. And he would always tell me like, hey, go to my church. Or, hey, man, you know, how are you? And the last time that he reached out to me, it was actually like days before the crime happened. And he gave me and the other guy a card for church. He said, look, I would like for you to invite you. I would like to invite you to this church. This church was actually across the boxing gym I was in. So I knew where it was at. And he said, hey, go to my church, please. I would like to see you there. And I actually, in my heart, considered going.
Yeah.
But when I saw my friend grip it up and throw it, I followed suit because I was a follower. So when I saw him do that, I threw it to the side. 2 days later, we committed our crime, and then we were in the bind that we were in.
That's that whole combination of situations that couldn't be controlled with the family because you were so young, and then those coming further and further. It's like the ripples in the pool got bigger and bigger as you were taking in other influences and other attitudes and so on, or other assumptions about reality.
Yeah.
And it's what I think probably everybody needs to remember is those assumptions you make. We could say, well, how did you think about that? But those were real, right? They weren't really assumptions. Those were realities, and you had seen them, and you had experienced being struck and experienced. That's an aspect of this that I think I'm glad you're walking us down this passage, because I don't think people understand that. I think there are too many who assume they're turning points. Oh, and you could have gone down here, and you could have gone. Well, not exactly. Not exactly.
And then the people that I did reach out to, they cut me off.
Right.
They saw me stealing, or they saw me for my behavior, and they'll give up. And I was an adult. I wish I could look at each one of them and say, you failed.
Right.
And are you still failing now? You failed before with me, but are you still failing now? Because there is children around you. Right. And are you still doing the same thing? I would say that to certain aunts, and even, well, actually, a lot of my family. You saw the struggle, but yet you turned your back. And are you doing that to others now? Right. That's the question. Now I'm grown now. I've changed now. And so they don't have to be concerned about that no more. But are they still turning their backs on people? Right. Are they still looking at this child who's like, I have a younger kids that look up to me, and I just got on the phone yesterday night with one of them, and he's considered a bad kid. He's doing this, doing that, automatically criticizing him, automatically, and it's like, back to that. Really? So I would take initiative. I would tell that kid, I believe in you. I would tell that kid, hey, come hang around with me. But yeah.
Is there a way to slow this down, to slow this sense of alienation, slow this sense of lack of importance down? Because what you're talking about seems to me to have tremendous momentum. Pretty soon, it's like a stone rolling down a hill. It's going to go up the next hill of its own weight and the energy pushed as people are pushing you away. Is there any point where that could be slowed down? Because I think, I'm a teacher. I'm concerned about what kind of intervention, if any, would slow that down, because it's happening right now around us. That's a big question. It's kind of hard to ask it, but maybe to think about that, because one of the things that we see that works is to get students in, of all things, into a reading club, because you think, how stupid is that? But if you're reading an alternative story to the one you're creating for yourself, sometimes that helps, not always. But you clearly, as you have come to this point in your life, have created an alternative story. So it's interesting to think about where that, because that's a 180-degree shift. And so where could any of that energy and that sense of what was really going on? I mean, you're way too young to say, these people just don't understand what they're doing. I need to turn my back on them, because you were too young, and there were family members, and we have all of the assumptions that are made about family members almost being incapable of making mistakes. And would be interesting to know, looking hindsight, been in my experience, and probably yours too, that hindsight is always 20. But if I look back, I can see, well, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah. But it seemed like such a good idea. So I don't know that this conversation will get to that, but I think that's where you have really an extraordinary possibility of offering insight other people don't have. Mm. So sorry to interrupt you, but that just seemed most interesting. Not interesting in a foolish way, but really here are points of understanding that nobody saw. Well, of course, we can say here family tradition, family experience, okay, but there were other people around you. Where were they in not seeing the points as they were almost ticking past the way a bicycle chain does? Tick, 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 tick. They didn't see that.
And it's I guess they don't see that as well, because I could turn around with all the adults right now that were adults when I was a child, aunts, uncles, and certain older cousins. Mm-hmm. And I could really look at them right now and be angry at them. I could really say, like, you let me down, or you're letting a lot of people down. Mm-hmm. You say you love me. I could easily go on that route like I did before when I first started there, because I was going through like 5-6 years straight sometimes without even hearing, hey, happy birthday. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I might have been a lot more longer than that, like 9 years maybe. Mm-hmm. Like, no happy birthdays, no of the above. So it's like I could hold myself angry because of that.
Yeah.
But ignorance. I think ignorance comes in. Some people just don't know. And I think that I might be the tool to help them realize that, yes, hey, it's important. It's important for you to be there for your kid. Mm-hmm. It's important. Why? Because A, B, and C. Right. Now they're not ignorant anymore. And I think that ignorance is not stupidity. Stupidity is, for me, it would be stupidity. Why? Because I know now. Now that I know, and I don't take initiative, yes, that's stupidity. But they are ignorant. So if they're ignorant and they're giving me everything they knew, which wasn't enough maybe, mm-hmm, now I can come in and say, look, this is where things went wrong, and this is what could happen. So now that they're actually acknowledging and know the knowledge, they won't be ignorant anymore. So I think the main thing also is to talk about, if we're gonna start talking about prevention after that. Okay, now we're not ignorant. People are, let's just say they're understanding now what happens when you're not really there. Mm-hmm. Now we understand that prevention comes in now, or intervention. Yep. So intervention comes in. So when I'm doing intervention, am I just focused on cutting the weeds, or actually reaching the root?
That's beautifully said, yes.
So because now it's like stages that I see in my mind. You see, the ignorance is gone because I brought that into knowledge, or we brought it into knowledge. Now we're intervening. We also got to determine whether it's the roots or the weed. Now, why to intervene? To prevent. Mm-hmm. And prevent what? Prevent people selling drugs. Mm-hmm. Prevent people stealing from each other. In other words, people not loving your neighbor as yourself. Right. If you love your neighbor as yourself, then you can actually avoid so much in life when it comes to the crimes. Right. Like, you don't want to grab this man's wife because you love him. Mm-hmm. You don't want to steal because you love that person. Mm-hmm. And then love as yourself, though. Right. Because if you don't love yourself, then how can you love anybody else? Exactly. So all this is like a spectrum of things that I see. Exactly. And all comes in hand. That's right. And not one is more important than the other. It's just I feel like it's the steps that my life and my story can bring into the table.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. And the picture that just came to my mind, which could be 5 minutes from now a different picture, was the interior of a clock. The clock is ticking away time in someone's life. Mm-hmm. And you have various wheels that are interacting with other wheels, and various sort of spacers that are keeping the wheels from repeating themselves, mm-hmm, or they're making them go forward instead of just sitting and spinning. And so those things are the sad thing is those pieces are already there, but we're not using them. We're so quick to put labels and say, oh, well, there's no, and as a teacher, the other thing that worries me, because I teach adults, you know, I don't teach the little kids, but we need to help find ways to do exactly what you said and to say to someone, give yourself some credit, and to say it's okay to, that nobody else is interested in me, but I have intrinsic credit. Mm-hmm. You know, I can give myself credit. And so when I give myself credit, then I can choose this. And that's where the community has to be ready, it seems to me, to say, right, we see you giving yourself credit. Now, we're going to offer, you know, it's not so much as a purchase, but we're going to offer a reaction to that. I see myself as having credit. I have value. And that is a terrible fight right now. I think it's a fight for everybody. And I think that's something that's an insight you have, because you watch that watch just keep going tick-tock, 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 and the same repeated process going tick-tock, tick-tock, and we need to find, you can explain that, because you're explaining it so wonderfully now to people, and we have to work together to find ways to get people to listen, to see it, and to listen, and I think you have a chance to do that. I think you have a chance to do that, and you know, if you start doing that, I don't mind helping. I am old, but still.
You're still capable.
Old age has, as Shakespeare said, old age has yet its purpose and its fun.
Of course it does, and like kind of what I said about deciphering between the root and the weeds. Yeah. I look at society now, and the weeds are, let's put more metal detectors at school, more secure stuff outside of the school, so these kids won't come in and do, you don't know exactly what's going on, where the kids are coming in with weapons and doing what they do to other kids or the teachers. Or the weeds are, hey, let me hit this kid because he is punching the wall. Right. The weeds are, you know, they look at this little girl, I'm gonna call her whatever stigma comes in because she is going out through it with other men, and she doesn't stop. And it's like, or abortions, we're focusing so much on abortion itself, and it's like, it's the weeds. But what is the root of the problem? And it's like, that is the question. When you look at this child that's getting bullied at school, he's reaching out to the teachers, or the teachers see him secluded, and the attitude is just down. Something's going on at home. Something's going on around the school. Something's happening. Why not ask questions about that child? And then you reach out to this child, you figure out what he's going through or she's going through, and you prevent this child from considering even bringing a weapon to school and taking out a lot of people. It's like, I know it's more complex than that, but that's why I bring awareness to the people that are more complex-minded than I am, the sociologists out there, the psychologists out there. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know how to dissect it. I'm bringing this is the problem. But help me break this problem down, because there's to a certain point I need your help.
Absolutely. And
that's why let's look. But all I'm saying is, let's focus on roots, and help. Let's focus on this problem. Right. And then they will bring something to the table that there's words that I might not even know how to pronounce. But
exactly. Yeah. And I think so much about programs and initiatives. And basically, those things often don't go very many places because they are the products of vanity. You know, I'm going to make myself look big. I'm going to be involved with this initiative. And we need to find ways, insist. Let's look at the individual person. What branches coming from that root could just be tweaked a little. Let's snip that off, but give the person an alternative. Because many people, a good many years ago, but not thousands, thought that the ways to help inner city young men, for instance, in high schools, just for the sake of interest, to set up what St. Jack has already. At one time, they had a whole outlay of Ford Motor jobs. And you walked in there, and it was like you were walking into one of the best dealerships in the United States. and you can learn anything. And if you said to someone, fight, come here, use your energies here, because often young men are interested, and that's kind of a overgeneralization, are interested when they're 14, 15, 16 in cars, and get them going there and find ways to mix the academics with that. Now, I think we need to look at who's there, and to understand, as you've been telling so powerfully, what's going on that just takes that sense of self and chips it away until all that can be left is rage. And that's not anger. That's much more dangerous for the person. So I'm not pushing that idea, but I think there are ways to pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. And I see so the different stages of life, we went over the background. We're talking about the case, and I clarified what happened.
Right.
And then from there, now I stopped. Now I'm in the juvenile.
Right.
Now I'm facing 2 crimes, and one alone, which I witnessed many men that were in the juvenile. Even at that time, when I went to the actual prison, a lot of these guys were in there, and these guys was just capital murder. They're doing 40 years just to see parole. Mm-hmm. And some of them will never get out. Right. But not to get off topic, now I'm in the juvenile. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going through this process of accepting the fact that I might be in for the rest of my life in prison, because that's all the COs are telling me, the correction officers. That's all they're telling me. You're going to be in there forever, and they're mocking me. Some even inmates or juvenile inmates were laughing at me, like, you're never going to get out, dude. Like, dang, that's the worst case, like, sure, worst charge. Now I'm seeing these guys with 9 months that I lasted in there. I saw these guys going home over and over. Some of them, just a few, were in my position, and it was sad. Like, I went through a lot of depression, a lot of anger, frustrations, sadness, tears, and there's like particularly times where like my family would sit outside, where they'll go visit me, and then they'll sit outside in Harris County in front of it because they knew I could see from down there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was one of the times that I broke down the most, where I seen them waving and they're saying goodbye, and I'm in my cell just crying like it was I mean, being 16 years old, just trying to accept the fact that I'll never go home. Yeah. And imagining my brother like telling me one day that he has kids, and then getting married maybe, and then me, it was like, that's over with. Accept the fact that you're never gonna see that again. You're never gonna step in the sand on the beach. You're always gonna be around metal and concrete. And it was in those moments when I started losing hope, and not to start getting all preachy and stuff, because a lot of people sense it when it comes to the Bible, but I started, I was broken one night, and I just didn't see no purpose anymore. And I never touched the Bible in my life. Like, after just crying so much at night, I started getting the sense of wanting to read something. And it just so happens that it was a bookcase outside of my door. And out of all books, it was the Bible that stood out to me. So I asked the officer to let me read it. And as soon as I opened it, keep in mind, I never touched it. As soon as I open it, it goes straight to Proverbs 1. And it's basically, to paraphrase, it's talking about, my son, if sinners entice you, to basically go steal innocent gain. At the end of the verse, it's talking about, in the end of the day, you throw a net out there to catch others, but you catch yourselves. Yeah. And then I got blown away, because it's like, this is basically what I'm in prison for, I'm in jail for. Exactly that. So I started reading that, and it started changing me. Because before that, I was also still thinking about some of these officers would throw racist comments at me. And they'll put me through so much because there was mostly African Americans in there. So the officers would push me to the side and say, no, he's using the phone, not you. And then they'll make me wait because I'm Hispanic. And I had my mindset that there was certain ones of them that one day if I get out and I'm in the parking lot, I could easily find you. I was still in kind of in that mindset. But when I started reading that, it started cleansing me from that. From that, every time I face certain racial slurs, I would face a lot of the things that the injustice, even amongst the inmates. It's like I stopped really thinking so much about automatically just trying to like have vengeance towards them. Right. So that was one of the things that started changing me. Another thing was my dad. My mom told me that my dad used to park in front. Okay, so my dad sold the reception hall that I seen him build. Every time he asked me to help him, he sold that and the land that he had, 3 houses, just so he could have a lawyer to help me out. And he didn't hesitate. So for him to do that for me, it finally showed me an act of love. Right. It showed me now that everything that I thought that he worshipped and loved, which I felt like he neglected me for that, he literally just sold it all for me. And that was the act of love that changed me. And I remember the visitation because my mom told me, she's like, hey, your dad parks in front of this place and cries because now it's not his. And that was his baby. But he gave it up for his actual baby. So I looked at him in a visitation one day, and I grabbed his hands and I looked him straight in the face and I said, one day I will pay you tenfold. At this time, I still don't know I'm gonna get out. But I looked at him straight in the face and I said, one day I'm gonna give you tenfold. I said, I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna do everything that I can to give you back. And he's like, son, you don't have to give me all that. It's like, as long as you make a change. And I said, that's gonna happen. That's gonna be in the process. But you don't understand. I'm giving you my word. So in that moment, I get certified as an adult. I get placed on chains. Like it just put me on all kinds of chains, and then they walk me from the shackles, and they walk me from the juvenile outside of the city to Harris County, which was really humiliating because now I'm wearing all blues and I'm wearing shackles. If I don't look, I might look 30 now, but if I look young now, imagine how I look when I was 16. Right. I look like I was 14, 13, because a lot of officers would always stop. Like, are you sure this is a 17-year-old? Just got certified? Like, yeah. They're looking at me like, no way, like it can't be. And every single officer that when I was in Harris County that would stop me, like, you gotta, hey, look into this guy because I don't think he's supposed to be here. And once I figured out that they get certified, they're like, what? Like, he looks so young, so little. So now I'm getting certified. I get placed in the tank, and thankfully I meet somebody that I knew from pre-K, which was like, even in pre-K, he was the strongest kid. So when they told me, there's somebody from your neighborhood here, he turns around, there's this big old big old man, and he's like, hey, he's all friendly, and now I'm like, what is like, and it was because of him that I didn't get bothered. It was because of him that these guys didn't bother this young-looking kid, because now you have this huge guy who was like right behind me, and he helped me through the process of being in that county, and then I get certified. But I got certified, I got bonded out. So after getting bonded out, my parents paid $250,000 bond, and they had to pay about at least 25%, so I could at least get out. And I told them before all that happened is please move out of Cloverleaf. And my brother, he was young, and I told him like I don't want to see him in the same situation, and please get out. So we ended up moving over here, which once they told me what they had a tennis court, a pool in the back, and I'm like, what? So for me to go from the house that we used to live at, where it creaks and it's cold when you shower, to a brick house with pool in the back, it was like amazing to me. So I couldn't wait to see it. So I finally got bonded out. I got placed on monitor, and I was out here. So in the process of being out here, I started trying to learn. I started letting go of a lot of things that I was doing. Some of the music that I would worship and listen to, I couldn't listen to anymore because I didn't want to just entertain that kind of lifestyle. Like I started just changing. I started trying to learn how to play guitar. And about within 3 years later, or it was like a little bit over 2.5, I got sentenced. So I'm 19 years old. And a month later, because I was turned 19 out here. A month later, I got sentenced with 2 15-year sentences. So now, and it was my mom's help. So before she gets backlash and all that, you know, she actually helped me out too. I was coaching children, using my, even then I was using my story to reach out to children, be like a coach, and I was mentoring them. And I would always give them as much advice as I could. So my mom one day took a picture of me and she showed it to the judge. So when she sentenced me, she was really supposed to sentence me to 25 years. But when she saw that picture, she's like, this is just changed, this affected your time. She took 10 years off. So now I'm in the back, I'm facing 15-year sentence. And out of all, like, it's human nature. Like when something new is coming in, you kind of like fear it. Well, this is not only just new, this is maximum security. Well, this is actually prison. Yeah. This is actually the state penitentiary. So
can you tell us the experience, like the emotions that went through whenever you heard that, the sentencing?
So the sentencing for me was a blur, because I remember I was hopeful. I was like, you know what, I've changed. A lot of people out here that met me, they're like, this is not possible that you were even involved. Like even now I have to let them know, like, I was there and I was with the intention of robbing them. Like, we can't believe it. Because a lot of them knew me in school. They're like, we could believe the other guy did it, but not you. Like, not you, come on. It's like, yeah, I mean, I was robbing them, yes. As for did I kill them, no. But it was a blur. All I heard was, you got 2 15-year sentence to state penitentiary in Texas, and then she slams that thing, and then after that, I was just, all I heard was, the will of a man will keep you going. That's what the judge said, and that's the words that I only remembered, because I don't know if I could recall my mom screaming or crying, and I just remember I just looked at her, and I just said, like, I just went like this, like bye. And now in the back, now they're taking off my monitor that I've had almost 2 years, which felt weird that they're cutting it off, and now my leg feels free, and I just dizzy, just like a blur. I didn't care what anybody said. I was just zoned out, watching the wall the whole time. As I'm going through the process and getting booked in, everybody's talking and they're getting booked into, and they show no care of the world. They don't care. They're laughing, they're joking, and I'm just, the whole time they're trying to ask me something, I'm ignoring them, and I'm just zoned out. And I remember in Harris County, they get you in front of the big TV, and they tell you what you're going to jail for, and everybody's just listening, like a crowd of people. Oh, you were here for burglary habitation. Okay, so you move to the side. Next guy. So as soon as I got in, you got capital murder and aggravated robbery. No. They said, well, that was before, but that was actually like something that blew me away too, is that everybody's got quiet, and it's like you could actually hear the sigh and the way they were like looking at me when I would just sit down. But that was actually right before. I'm getting booked in now, and the officers are making jokes, and I'm asking myself, how can somebody be happy in his life like that? And when I'm going through this, it just didn't make sense. Like, you're smiling and laughing and your job, but you don't know the situations about people in here. But I barely remember. I remember just I grab all my clothes, because they give you all your clothes and you fold it up, and I see the elevator opening, and in my mind I'm like, this is the beginning of a 15-year sentence. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is just the first day. So I felt like I'm literally looking up at a huge mountain, and I'm like, how am I even supposed to even climb this? So the whole time I was in there, I was just showing no emotions to people. I was secluded. I pushed people away. I didn't want to talk to nobody. But it was also in that process where I told myself, I made a vow to myself, and people that are close to me know that I always say that. I made a vow to myself, and I remember the promise I gave my dad. I said, I will learn much more in this experience than I would have ever learned if I wasn't in here. So that I was already approaching the situation with determination to change and better myself and progress. So with that approach, changed the way I did my sentence. It explains why when I got sent to TDCJ 45 days later, when I get put a place in the prison, and as soon as I land there, that's what we call it, I just told myself, I don't have my GED, I don't have no high school diploma, so how can I get this? And that's the first route I took. I signed up for it quick, since I was so young, they automatically put me there. And I paid attention like ever before. And I got such high grades that the teacher and everybody chose me to get placed with about a few more other guys to get sent to college.
Oh, good.
And I got sent to this college, and I'm determined I'm gonna pass. I'm determined that I got a vow for my dad, for myself. I'm determined. And not only am I doing this educational route, I'm also doing the physical, where I'm not only, I have to do this for survival in there, but also like to be right physically. So not only am I going to church and going to spiritual, I'm going to mental when it comes to education, but I'm also doing the physical now. And now I'm starting to get really into fitness, start really, really focusing and getting myself right on top of every other spectrum of my life. And I did everything in my power. Everything that I did was, I had to count for something. And even like when I was in the kitchen working there for like a year or two, no, it was like 4 years maybe, I told myself, what am I learning now that is not, that, I mean, I get to eat out here, I mean, in there, but everything that I'm learning in that kitchen, is that gonna help me when I get out? So I even asked for a maintenance job. And then after that, I was in maintenance as an electrician, but I started learning work ethics. I didn't even know how to hold a drill. Now I'm learning electrical work, welding, some plumbing.
Wow.
And now I get on, when I got sent to college, they made it into a women's prison. So they sent us off to Robertson Unit, which is maximum security in Abilene, Texas. And now I'm 9 hours from home. And there I asked for college, and they weren't trying to hear it. They weren't trying to hear it. I was already in college. I didn't even get to finish it. So can you send me back? And they never listened to me. So I was just waiting on them. I said, you know what? I'm just gonna join a vocation, and that's when I got in small engine repair. So now I'm in small engine repair, learning how to fix small engines, and I'm in maintenance, learning how to do electrical work. Every morning I'm going, at least it was about Tuesday morning, I would go to the library and educate myself. I will go to the psychology section, and I will consume a book after book about, placebo effects and incognito, and then all these nice little terms that I started learning about, because I feel like if I didn't have a father or a mother to basically teach me how to be a man or about life, then I'm gonna go take it upon myself to learn that. So whenever I have children or I come out of here, I'll have something to provide. So I went and learned money management, business management. I went and learned psychology, economics, all the above. And then I used to listen to a radio show called Focus on the Family. And I would listen to that faithfully about how to be a grandparent. I mean, people would laugh at me like, why are you even learning about being a grandparent? Or how to be a father or a husband, how to manage your own life. So that is the things that I was consumed in, to where there's a saying that I love that I came upon. It was from Annie Dillard. She said, how you spend your days is, of course, how you spend your life.
That's right.
So I asked myself, how I spend my days is thus how I spend my life. In that case, I need to observe myself while I'm in here and amplify what I'm already doing.
Right.
So now I am steadily using every second that I can. I was to the point that it might have not even been healthy the way I was doing this. Like, I'm just consumed. So certain guys would come in, and yes, I would inspire some. Like, some actually came by and they're like, man, everything you talk about, everything you do, every action that you take, it's just positive. Like, but, and then they will some of them will even tell me, like, I joined college because of you. Or I've let go of being in a gang because of you. Because whenever I got in there, they told me, you're gonna join a gang. And especially from being Hispanic, from Houston, they said, you're gonna join what you call Tango Blast. He said, you're gonna be all filled up with tattoos. We give you 6 months before you do. So there was something in me when I was a child, when somebody would tell me, don't do this, now on purpose they're gonna do it. Well, I changed it. Now when these guys are telling me I'm gonna do something negative, because everybody's doing it, I'm gonna go against that.
Yeah.
And thankfully I went in a time in prison where I could actually go by myself. I chose not to be with a gang. I chose not to get tattoos. I chose not to waste my time. And it was like a major beneficial thing. So now I got all these things and I'm applying myself educationally. I'm applying myself who I talk to, who not to talk to, what not to do.
Right.
And it's like, it is something that now, well, I don't know, the next stage will be more like what I'm doing now, but I don't know if you have any questions because I'm kind of going through there.
Reminds me very much of the story of Malcolm X.
Yes, that's why I like a lot of his story as well.
Yeah, because he started to read, he wanted to write the letter to Elijah Muhammad and had no words. And so he started reading the dictionary to get words. And then that led to his reading, and then that led to his becoming involved.
And you just reminded me that I wanted to speak about biographies.
Thankfully, biographies made me tell people like this. It's like, if you know an old man, a wise old man that's able to answer a lot of questions in your life, which wouldn't you sit there and ask him questions or listen to him? They're like, yeah. So how come you don't read books then? Because a lot of times that old man actually wrote a book.
You got Socrates, you got all these philosophers who questioned life and dissected it and then recently approached it and found some answers that you may apply in yourself.
Yes.
Or if a man reached a success or a woman reached success a certain way, maybe I could implement her approach to success and my own success so I could increase the chances of reaching that. So I took it upon myself to start learning, like just reading them. I was, all right, you know what, I'm just gonna approach these biographies. Right now at this moment, I've been in maintenance. I got some good work ethics now. I've been just working there regularly. Just took small engine repair. I got a few college credits, and I've been reading constant. So I started reading George Washington's first. And at first it was kind of hard because it was like new to me. Yeah. But as I started getting into biographies, I started consuming these things because I'm like, why? I mean, because I always start consuming these things because it's teaching me so much. Right. Like, what the heck? Like, I started laughing. Like, if the teachers would have just told me what I could learn from history, because back then I was like, what history is a waste. Like, why do I have to learn this? I don't have to learn how to do this. I know I'll complain. But as I started learning history, basically on biographies, I was like, what? So I started actually reading history books as well. Textbooks about the Alamo or learning about George Washington's journeys. And I read the biographies of like Alexander the Great. Yes. And just to name a few, Steve Jobs was one of my favorite ones too. His mindset, and now I even apply certain things that like what he will preach about simplicity. And I'm amazed by biographies because you can learn from these people, like the way they reach success. It's like, what formulas did they use to reach success that you can apply for yourself to reach your own success? And it was amazing how some of these guys faced hardships. How did you overcome? How did you get through? And one of the also ones that reminded me of myself without trying to insult, they're saying that the system is exactly how it was, as slave days were. But Frederick Douglass reminded me of myself because Frederick Douglass started learning how to read. And when he started learning how to read, knowledge is almost like it opened up the view of what opportunities were. He saw horizons that you can't whenever you have no knowledge and understanding that comes from reading. And when I started learning a lot of the psychology, when I started learning a lot about biographies and certain books that I was reading, money management, business management, all the above, I started seeing just like kind of like I felt like he was. Like first off, not to get all controversial, but I started seeing the tactics that the wardens use and the ranks use and the prisons use to run masses of people, to keep a herd, moving them certain ways. And I started understanding why certain psychology books weren't accepted in prison. Right. So if I was sneaking things in from prison, was actually books that weren't allowed. Some of these manipulative books, the psychology books, that they weren't allowed in there. And I said, why aren't they allowed? Just like Frederick Douglass, he asked questions, why can I not read? So why can I not read this? So I started reading these things and I started seeing the tactics. Right. I felt like literally as I started reading these things, I lived above the situation, their circumstances. I lived above their tactics. I lived above their stigmas, their labels. the labels that they use for my the ID that said offender. Like, man, I'm not an offender. I'm not TDCJ number so-and-so. I'm not this inmate. I'm not this. I'm not what these were or what they say I am. Like, I am above this. But just the thing that, one of the things that Frederick Douglass also faced, though, that I found myself, was frustration, anger. Why? Because he saw the potential in himself, that he could have been doing, but the slavery was suppressing in him. And I felt the same way. Like, I feel so frustrated because I know I can do much more. I know I deserve much more. And it was stopping me, even though, yes, I was paying consequences. Yes, justice needed to be served. But I felt like that in that moment, like, wow, I could do much more. So now my drive I started getting more driven. Now I started getting more motivated. And I was like an ongoing process where it's like a snowball effect for me. So the same way it was a negative snowball effect back then, now it's a snowball effect on the positive things. But that is the process of me being in prison, investing my time, not wasting it, not getting stuck in the politics like the rest of the other guys are doing. When it comes to when I call politics because they're getting arguments amongst what gang is doing this, or what inmates or what set of race is doing that. It's like, or what is this officer doing here? Look, I did not care. Y'all do what y'all do as long as it doesn't pertain to me and my property, what I got going on. It's, hey, I'm gonna keep continuously investing, because there's a difference between wasting and investing. You could be wasting your life in there, like a lot of guys do, and they watch TV from the very beginning all the way to the end. A lot of these guys just sit and get by, and they find a routine to just get by. But I call that arrested development. But arrested development, where you actually grab a human, freeze them, and then years later, unfreeze them, and what is he? The same person, it's just older. So I feel like that's why a lot of us guys that come out, they come out about 40, 50 years old, but they're still 16. They're still 15 years old. Because they found a coping mechanism to basically escape the situation, but also found a reason to just get by and found no productive ways to use it. Right. So basically what I'm saying is, overall, I invested my time as much as I could while I was incarcerated for 11 and a half years.
That's astonishing, and that is exactly the power of biography. You see a context to a person's life that is so foreign to your own, and you watch how that person goes through it, and how the person fights. Generally, biographies aren't written about people who don't fight unless they're in a sort of bunch with people who did and people who didn't. And so it's just interesting that you pick up what you pick up, as you've said, the seed of what you need, and that is keep going. Keep one foot or 1/2 a foot at a time. And there are biographies written about the women in the Second World War who became experts at code breaking. And they actually became so good at it that they could manage partly the beginning of the Enigma machine. And that's the first sort of very primitive, not quite computerized code machine. And that would set codes. They do it. I don't want to get us off on this, but they'd make a message, and then they would take that message and switch it into another code, and then take that one. So you had to go through 5 or 6 levels of code breaking to get the idea. And the women did that. They became higher math, all kinds of things. But back to your point, you learn so much from the patterns of somebody else's experience. That those patterns, which you couldn't, none of us could have had those at our childhood, and you get to, as an adult, make choices to see the patterns, see the trajectories, and then say, no, I don't want that trajectory. I want this one, so I'm going to pay attention to this one. And we get to see those when we can't see them, and I agree with you that teaching biographies, particularly to like junior high students, is enormously important, because they see how because they're already worrying about the trajectory of their own lives. And if you show them, here's what somebody else did, it's not that you follow that person. Stephen Hawking, for example, had ALS, the longest person to live with ALS. But he managed to stay going because he was wealthy and he was a scientist. But he also didn't stop, even to the point where he was communicating with a computer chip, and that was the only part of his mouth that could move. I'd so use what that says is every tiny piece of chance, any implement that's, obviously legal, but still, he was amazing. And you see, you've done that, so you're amazing too. It's nice that you don't have a wheelchair like Stephen Hawking did.
Yeah, but the other one that really stunned me was like Einstein's, and it was just amazing how the things that he formulated, as in like you going against conventional thinking. Exactly. And that his biography helped me understand conventional thinking. Like, what is conventional thinking? And then like around you, these scientists are telling you, you can't break this law, but yet he questions that because he's naturally, that rebel. Right. And he uses whatever his natural rebelness and his smart, like his intelligence, and goes against it and breaks laws that some of these guys were like standing on, to where they could not let go. And they're like, man, I just proved every single person I proved you wrong. And a lot of the things that you were holding on to so hard because of conventional thinking. And now then that's when now you start asking yourself self-application after that. Right. After every chapter, self-application. Jonathan, what are you doing? Are you doing what are you doing to basically do the same thing? Yes, of course you're not a genius or with intelligence like his. Maybe I am, but I'm saying like at the time, no, what can I do to overcome conventional thinking in my circumstance? Exactly. And then you start detecting what's conventional thinking around here. Oh, we're gonna all struggle when we get out. We're worth nothing. We're like just settle for less, do nothing. Like, hey, we really can't do much anymore. We already have felonies. Like this state of Texas would never forgive. All these different things that people throw out in that area. So I'm like, no, not me. And then yes, of course you become the clown when you say not me. Oh, wow, look at you. Always makes you different. This isn't that. But you know what? Einstein was getting clowned on too, until he actually started talking about E equals, C squared, I believe, right? MC squared. But it was just amazing to me how these biographies were teaching me. But one of the main, also not only the biographies, there was one class that was 9 months, and 9 months is long. Oh. And I took this class about 6 different times. That the last 3 times that I took, they chose me as a group leader, and to teach it. Well, not teach it, but be the group leader, to lead it. And this class was called Quest for Authentic Manhood. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe his name was Aaron Lewis. But Quest for Authentic Manhood teaches you how to look back at your baggage, because he says that everybody carries a baggage, whether it's a suitcase or it's a huge backpack, or you're carrying it around, and it has an influence in your life. So it is important for us to know our backgrounds, and once we start understanding the background, it also gives you the steps of how to overcome the certain things that your parents put you through, and how to become a man, and then also turn around and forgive. Yeah. So that class helped me understand so much about myself, my parents, and it freed me in many ways. And it was amazing because my dad, what helped me forgive them was exactly what he said in the class. He said, hey, your parents didn't wake up every morning. He said, I doubt. He said, yes, a lot of your parents affected you. But he says, and 9 times out of 10, your parents did not wake up every morning saying, how can I mess up my son's life today? How can I piss him off and worry and mess his whole day and lead him to astray? He said, mostly us parents didn't do that. I said, if you look back at your parents, I'm sure you can answer like, no, my parents didn't say that. So yes, they affected me by hitting me all the time, disciplining me. And the worst of all was the verbal abuse. Right. You're a piece of crap. You will never amount to nothing. You won't do this. You won't do that. And then from outside of my parents too. Oh, you're a nobody, or you're this. Mm-hmm. So I ended up believing in these things, but now I understand that they didn't wake up like that. So it's like he said, you forgive them because they gave you all they knew they have. Mm-hmm. And all they knew they had was exactly what they gave you. So why are you gonna blame them when all they knew they had was what they got, what they received from your grandparents? Mm-hmm. So it's like it's an ongoing process, domino effect. Right. So that's when I started like taking these classes, reading biographies, reading psychology, all the above, and then educating myself so I won't be 19 years old and fulfill the vow that I made, mm-hmm. that I was gonna gain much more in there. But as some of y'all know, as I'm in this journey of learning, I started writing my brother, mm-hmm. and I started giving him a lot of the things that I was learning, the lessons, and a lot of the things that I was making mistakes. I'll write them, advice, lessons, love, giving him affirmational words. I believe in you. I love you. So I will give them that, and like 7 years later, he surprises me with a NASA badge. Mm-hmm. And I was at the worst prison at that time because I got moved and I got to a Ferguson unit. And I believe it's in Midway, Texas. Mm-hmm. And now I'm in Ferguson, which is worse than Robertson. And there's less educational help there because of how messed up it is. And that's when he surprised me at visitation that he was working in NASA. Mm-hmm. So for me, that fulfilled beyond my expectations when it comes to making that vow. Because that for my dad, because if I told him I was going to give him tenfold, that in itself should already be more than everything.
What your story tells, and that's why it needs to be widely shared, is that this experience, which was horrific and could have been catastrophic, was one that you actually turned into something that was self-expanding. But that also at the same time it was self-expanding. It gave you a sort of gravity. It gave you, when someone has gravitas, what that means is that they have the capacity to think deeply, and they have also a manner in which they are going to be thinking, not so much gravely in the sense of overly negative, but very determined and very insistent on using information that is helpful and that was helpful to them as you're telling it. And I think that gravitas makes your whole message stronger, and that you probably got from the biographies, because you would have read some of the statements of the people, and the ones that have that gravitas. Words are so powerful to us that those, as we read them, or even if we don't read them aloud, they become part of our mental structure, and they're ways we begin to describe ourselves and others. And you see, so that literally changes the way people think. And one of the disturbing things to everybody in the nation is our young people are greedy.
Oh, of course.
Greedy, yeah.
And then I could point out there's different. My greatest teachers who I looked up to, who don't ever know me, will never know me, because some of them have been passed, centuries ago. Right, yeah. But some of these, I wish I could look at them and thank them. Mm-hmm. Like I look at Helen Keller, yes. You're blind, but yet you're a writer. Yes. You helped me understand that circumstance does not dictate your abilities. Exactly. And you shouldn't allow yourself to get down because of your circumstances. So if I'm blind, I could easily say I'm blind, I can't write. Mm-hmm. Or I'm blind, but you know what, I'm gonna try, and then she did it.
Remember, she would not have been able to do that had her friend her companion's name just went out of my mind. But she had a companion who was hired by the family to deal with.
Oh, yeah.
And she realized that she had to give at the very first moment, then this was in the first few months of her working with her, that she had to give her the sense of the reality of words. And so one of the things she did was they were drawing words on her hand because she was both deaf and blind. Now that's a double whammy.
Oh, yeah.
So she would draw and they had some kind of code. I can't imagine she was actually drawing the whole word, but she was doing water, and then she poured water on her hand. And then she would do water, and then she would put water on her face. And you see what that did was that helped this blind and deaf child to understand this meant splash, water. And you see that all of a sudden the language becomes real. And so it's that, in addition to yourself, and you've already talked about other people who influenced you, but once you get to see where the word actually has depth and it actually has punch to it, then you're sort of hooked, which is that's a good thing.
And then I could go on and on because it's amazing, like George Washington and Alexander the Great, and both of them taught me something. George Washington was given power, and he was actually offered full power when they told him, we have the throne, we will give you, we will make you a king. But him, with the wisdom that he had and the beauty of heart, he said no. He started actually the presidency. He's the one that actually set it in motion. Like, no, I'm not going to be king, but I will be president for 4 years. Right. Then you got Alexander the Great, who started off good. You were a great man. You had morals, certain things you wouldn't do. But then you kept overcoming and growing and expanding to where your head started growing. And now you forget everything. And now you turn evil and go all out. And it's like these two men have helped me realize how much power can change somebody. Yes. And then I believe it was Abraham Lincoln who actually said, give a man, you want to test a man's character, give him power. That's right. And it's like that, aligned with that, made me question myself. There are certain times in prison where an inmate will get placed in the right job, working next to the warden. And anybody who's done time knows that kind of inmate. He was what they used to call in the slave days Uncle Toms. Yes. They will walk around like they're the best, they're gods. They have the nice clothes, and oh man, you cannot tell them anything. They're walking on clouds. They have this arrogant, narcissistic attitude. They'll brag in your face that they're eating what we call free will food, fruit bomb out here, instead of soups. And they all have this mentality like Satan that's trying to take over God and saying, I have such beauty. And it's like, I saw that in that. And then I questioned myself, would I ever be placed in a position where I have power and change? And yes, it might not be a great example, but it is an example in my life with the littlest things, where I was given a job called Inside Yard. In this Inside Yard, this woman had full power in that prison. This woman actually she was the head honcho, like she wasn't even the warden, and I was working under her. And a lot of the workers that were working for her had this mentality like that. And I would come back for the guys that I would talk to, and I would sneak them food. I would give them extra things. And it was like, that was biography. So guys, I don't want to be Alexander the Great. No. I want to be just like George Washington, who had in that instant, in that context, a good heart. So.
Right, and it's wonderful you're bringing that up, since we just watched King Charles get crowned on Saturday, the English coronation. And when they were talking with Mr. Washington, they said, what shall we call you? Do we call you Your Majesty? Do we call you Your Grace, which is the way you would address a duke? And he said, I think Mr. President. And I think we can all help others and ourselves see what you're talking about. Yeah. Then that helps everybody. Because I can be Mr. or Miss or scientist so-and-so, or code breaker so-and-so, and whatever. And mom, it's pretty important now that we have people who want to be moms. And so I think that's huge, because it's in the naming of ourselves that we begin to make solid all of the experiences that we have. That's why Jesus gave his disciples certain names. He said to Peter, no, you will be the rock. Okay, and sometimes Peter was a blockhead, Because Paul had to tell him over and over again, probably wanted to hit him with a stick, that the Gentiles needed to be part of the new faith.
That's just
And Peter was just going, "Oh, I know they're not Jews." Peter the Rock, stop it for a moment. But he had to be very strong to not let other things come in. So you're right. It's wonderful to hear you talk about that, because those are the seeds that keep us. The reading biographies are the seeds that keep us from being destroyed or also becoming too full of ourselves.
So kind of like not to keep on saying the positive side too, because there's also a time where I got tested. The testing came in the form of and typically for an inmate to hear that you're going to a 6-month program, getting transferred from that unit to a 6-month program, that means that you're going home. So they told me, "You go home?" I don't know, when they say you got FI6 program. So I'm like, what? I'm excited. I start giving my clothes away. That's what we do with the people we talk to. Start getting rid of my appliances. So now I'm ready. So we get sent over there. We're all excited. The bus driver's telling us that we're going home. We're all excited. The wardens are telling us, the counselors. But then 2 days later, they say we got to sign some papers before we start the program. And our papers are different. And our papers say you're the first group of Texas prisoners to go through this program without going home. That crushed me. That crushed me. That tested me to a point where all the lessons, all the education that I've gotten, the maintenance, everything got tested in that instant. And that's when I started getting like dark. That's when I started getting angry, because this is my third, I believe it was my third time seeing parole. I got denied, because I got denied three different times until for my fourth time, which I finally made it. But now I'm getting tested. Now I'm seeing these guys who are messing up. And it's typical. You see the guys who are messing up, doing bad things, they're the ones that go home. And the people like us who are educating ourselves, going to school and all the above, we don't. So for me I started questioning these things. I got so angry. The books, I kind of let them to the side, and I was angry. I started going through, for the first time, depression. And every morning I would wake up and praying to God. I said, "God, I will never commit suicide. I will never hurt myself, but I will pray for you to take my life today." Every morning, "God, take my life away. You said a prayer of a righteous person if I am righteous, whatever you call me now, I want to die now. I want to die. Every morning, I want to die. I want to die." And I was adamant. I prayed for that for almost, I forgot, even months and months. So I did 11 months of this 6-month program. And this program was tough. They wake you up in the morning. They call it feet on the floor. If you're laying down, they give you a write-up. And they harass you. The officers know that there's a lot of these guys are going home, so they harass you, so you'll mess up your chance to go home. And I'll be angry because I'll stand up for them, and I'm like, I'm not going home. So what's up? What are you gonna do? I'll start cussing them out. Now I'm getting like, I started actually putting a lot of pressure on my brother, because he was getting all these what was the signatures called? The petitions. He was getting petitions, and these petitions were from the community, and it added up to like 1,400. And by this time, we already met Scott Budnick, who was a producer in horror movies, and I started getting like real angry, because we know this giant, and then yet, what is going on? Why isn't the help coming? I already got denied 3 different times, and where's the help coming? Without me considering the fact that he's in school as well, and he's juggling that and creating the website for me, and the petitions and all that. And now I'm getting real dark. I'll start getting into bad stuff, so. That was the point that I felt like, if I see TDCJ, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, releasing the bad people, because over and over, at that time I had a little bit more over 10 years, maybe just 11 now. If I see these guys going home, acting bad, if I see these guys that are in positions where they're threatening officers, masturbating on officer women and getting caught for that, if they're going home, then that means that I'm going to turn bad, so I will go home too.
Yeah.
I gave up on all the things that I was holding on to. And yes, I said healing process, but then I also started going back down. because it was up and down. And that's when I started getting into stuff. I started getting into so many stuff where I was supposed to get caught and I didn't, but they placed me on segregation. And when I saw my brother there, he went to visit me. He's like basically saying to me, like, how embarrassing would it be to tell mom that, like, you may have extra time now because they give you extra time for a cell phone, but they didn't catch me for one. But they were still trying to smear me with something. So that, when I went back out, that's when I started like, slowly but surely climbing back, slowly but surely getting back to reading. But that's basically kind of letting people know that yes, things could be going your way, but then you face that time where you feel like it's over and like, man, I'm done. Well, I wasn't done regardless. Although I got with bad attitudes with my brother, although I acted a certain way, at the end of the day, I could say I didn't give up. And I thank God, and I thank him now that he didn't answer my prayer for him to take my life away. Because if he would have, I wouldn't have gotten the opportunities that I now have. So, but now being released, at the moment I got released, they put me on TikTok, which I didn't even know what TikTok was. I broke down crying in the car, and all the emotions, all just bundled in bundles that I just can't pinpoint one or two.
We start from receiving music, coming home, and process stepping out, seeing us, waiting on us, and patients, seeing your clothes and stuff like that.
Well, for me, when I was given the okay that I was going home, it was like, and I got one of the best answers that Farouk can give you, which is still 45 days upon release. And 45 days felt slow, but yet I started drawing different cartoons. And these cartoons, I started drawing them because I wanted to put them on shirts, which I still have that waiting. I started drawing all these cartoons, started drawing, and just trying to plan out what I'm going to do. I wasn't nervous. I guess you could say nervous, but you see so many guys that get told yes, and the very last moment when they're stepping out, they grab you and they pull you back in. It's like, never mind. So for me, it was like, I can't even express this until I'm actually home. And well, the days go by, weeks go by, and I'm finally getting told that I'm walking. I mean, like, I go to the certain place where you get your clothes. My brother gets me two different sets of regular, kind of like a shirt like this, and then with a nice pants or a suit. And of course, I will go for the suit.
Yeah.
I go long sleeve, button up shirt with with everything, the vest, the shoes. But it felt weird to finally put different socks.
Right.
That are not all rough and gray.
Yeah.
It felt weird to put colored, because I especially chose a suit also because it was black. It was a way opposite from white. I wore white for 11 and a half years straight. So, and then white boxers too. So when I'm putting these briefs on that are colored, feels right. And finally, there's no, sorry for the language, but there's no more piss stains on boxers, the more rips on them. These pants are not all just somebody else's.
You're right.
And then I'm actually putting a belt on now, and which they'll wear belts is all just bands. And it's like, it felt like amazing. And now I'm putting this shirt on and it feels good. And it's like, wow, like it felt good. Like, can't even explain it. Like, well, around the skin. And like looking at my body, it felt foreign because I'm so used to seeing the white shirt.
Yeah.
Now it's like I see the black shirt, the black pants, and the shiny shoes, and I'm like, whoa, this is it. So I'm finally walking out, and it just feels, it's like a blur again, but this time there's a positive blur where I'm just trying to be in a hurry to leave.
Right.
Like, but yeah, I don't know how to process the fact that my family is finally not given the time to be with me, not getting told that I'm gonna be in front of them for just an hour or two, where I could finally just, this is it. Like, I could be with y'all and just drive off. No more officer telling me and screaming at me that it's 5 minutes left, nor a minute left, and you gotta go. Wow. You don't have to go back to, just, back in there. And it felt
amazing, like the hugs and the people there. It was friends, my brother's friends that grew up with him and know the story. And it was a beautiful thing to just let go. But yeah, my mom, she went through like a nervous breakdown where she kept screaming my name and let's go. And it was beautiful, even though it was kind of scary because I didn't want something bad to happen to her, maybe a heart attack. Right. So I was trying to kind of be stern with her, like, let's go, I'm all right. But again, just like the visit where I had kind of had to hold my emotions in because of that. And I just feel like I can't really fully express even feelings down. Right. Like, it's easier to suppress feelings or show more frustration and anger and anything else. Right. Than fear or like sadness. But yeah, I got home. I finally walked all the way to the back of the house. I wanted to walk all the whole yard and see the difference of everything, seeing the difference in everybody, and having to tell myself to accept the fact that life moved on, but now it's time to adapt.
That's right. Yeah, that's wonderfully said, where you have life moving and at the same time you are moving with it now instead of watching it not move. It was moving and not moving at the same time, which must be terrible. But then it was moving and taking you along. Yeah. Of course, the wonderful thing is you didn't lose what you learned mentally and spiritually, that you were able to take that with you too. And that's good.
So now what happens now is all the going back to Andy Diller, how you spend your days does, or of course, how you spend your life. And how I spent my days in there, I literally consumed myself in everything that I explained to y'all. And this isn't just days. This is weeks. This is year after year after year. And now I'm out here and I realized that I didn't miss out on much, because it seems like the mental prison that a lot of people are out here is worse than the prison that I was in 11 years flat. Because some of these guys are still, or some of these women are still incarcerated in the mind. Right. Whether it's the vices that they do, some of the things that they do, they're incarcerated. And yet they look at me and say, oh, you're wasting so much time. Yeah. But then I look at them and I'm like, without trying to be judgmental, but what have you done? Yeah. And in the 11 and a half years that I've been gone, what is it? Why is it that you live a life where you're in prison in the mind, which is the worst prison ever? Right. So now I am grateful to God that I actually surpassed the vow that I was gonna learn much more in there than I was gonna learn out here, because out here I was just gonna party. Yeah. I was just gonna drink. Let's say I was a doctor, but yet I would have been drinking every weekend. Right. Every paycheck that I would have had, I would have just, because I used to love drinking. That was the only drug that I did do. And it was just one of those just regular things, like, but I knew that I was gonna drink, not socially, but to drown something. Yeah. And that's when you become a drunk. That's when it becomes a problem. So now I'm out here, and through the psychology and the certain things that I've learned, I see through that lens, and I see a lot of characteristics in people that I'm like, I don't mean to say that, hey, there's no hope for them, because there is, but it's like, wow, this whole time I was mad at God because I feel like I was losing out. Yeah. Yeah. But I didn't lose out on much. I actually gained. I actually invested my life in there. Yeah. So now things start to come out naturally for me. There's something that's broken around the house, like a toilet, like I just fixed the toilet, or they bring me a weed eater or a push mower, I fix it. A friend just brought me a Cadillac, I helped them fix that. The lights, I've been helping fix the lights. I've been investing in the paintball field that I'm just starting off. So it's all the training, right, put it into experience now. Right. And that's what you see now. That's where I stand at now. So that's my past, that's prison life, and then that's me coming out, and then what I have going on currently.
Yeah. Well, that's just a tremendously powerful timeline, and it's extraordinary that you have been able to keep to that timeline, without focusing on it so much. Does that make sense? Because sometimes when we focus on a timeline, we're more interested in what day it is or how many hours I've been here than actually seeing stages of life develop. And that's basically what we need to be after, stages of life. And I think that's would you agree that that's a much healthier way to look at being able to see multiple periods in your life? Because we are built a brick at a time. And sometimes, like the children of Israel in Egypt, those bricks don't have any straw in them, so the brick itself is not going to be as strong, but that doesn't mean that it will crack either.
And if a human allows it, if a human allows, even though even to this point I still hate going through hardships and my emotions speak one thing, but logically I know that it is necessary for us to go through certain things like that, because just like every part of our bodies is made that the more pressure it receives, the more stronger it gets. Like look at the calluses in the skin. At first it blisters and it cuts and it hurts, but what happens after that? It toughens up. The muscle in your body does the same thing. You tear it up, you get sore and it hurts when you touch it. But the next day it heals up and then it starts growing and expanding. Everything in the human body to the mental. But it's sad that a lot of us find coping mechanisms, especially like what I've seen personally, drugs. Drugs come in, now I gotta drink myself away so I can forget. Now you're skipping off, you're cutting yourself off in opportunities that these things can give you. And these things can actually give you so much knowledge and wisdom, this juicy wisdom that you could literally fill yourself up and become even better, but you skip out on it. And a lot of prisoners do it by watching TV all day, getting lost in the gang life, getting lost in whatever, or the drugs. Out here, the partying all the time, or whatever it is. It's like you're finding something, a coping mechanism to get away from it. And it's like you're cutting yourself off from becoming such a beautiful person tomorrow. And it's mind-boggling to me. And that's why I faced it head on, even though I hated it sometimes.
It is. Well, I think what you're saying is true. You face it head on, even though you hate it, even though you don't want to give it even the priority of half a percent, and it may need to have 50% to have some things done. I can see that, and that's clearly helped you in development as you waited patiently. It's hard to do that. I have not had to do that. But, we've been adding Bible stories. When Joseph was put in prison by his
Potiphar's wife.
Right, by the first wife. Right, he was in prison years before
he even got a chance.
Before he interpreted the dream.
And it's funny you use that story because that's one of the main ones that helped me.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And then he was in prison longer because after that too, because the two men that he had interpreted dreams for forgot about him, and they didn't. Oh, they said, wait, we had a guy back there in prison who could interpret dreams, and they hadn't been very faithful to their we'll get you out too, and they didn't. But so it takes a long time, and I think that's one of the things that it's fun for people my age to beat up on the old young. Okay, but when I was young, everybody beat up on me too. They're too young to understand this. But I think that for the 21st century, I think there is a problem for young people to understand waiting and be also being still.
Be still and realize God.
That's right, yeah. Because if I can still myself and be still and focus as you did, see, this is why your story needs to get told, as you did in really horrific circumstances, then others who are not in those circumstances really have no excuse not to be still. Because, the Lord is very near to us, and so our proper response is not, I'd like to have this. And then in about 2 years, I'd like to have that. And then it is to just be still. That's such an important message for the 21st century. Don't use it. That being still is much different from being quiet. Being still in here, because it's that small voice, not the screaming one. And sometimes it's a voice where somebody says something, and when you're thinking more about this, and you're so courageous to actually be thinking about this, because I can see many people would say, I'm not thinking about this now. This has been too, terrible a situation. But it's so wise, and so it's healthy for you, but it's so wise for people that you'll be talking to, that you're telling this when it is so fresh. And it's not something that, I remember, 25 years ago that, but you've held all of those experiences so that they're very fresh and immediate. And that's good, because those experiences, each one has perhaps a lot of pain in it, but it also has a truth in it. Yeah. It doesn't mean that it's a good thing we suffered them.
Yeah. Oh, no.
No, but it's most interesting to say, I knew this, I've known this already. I had the experience way back there. And I think that's the message you have. So we have so many messages, but that one particularly is one that lots and lots of people need to hear.
Thank you.
It's just be still. And that takes will. So I'm practicing that in my own spiritual life too. It's the Lord is very near, be still. And I'm thinking, well, okay, now I've got a class that starts. I've got a Zoom class that's going to start at 8:30, and I'll just do this little prayer time right now. Okay, Lord, you've got this period of time. Now I want to talk to you about these things. But that's not the way it works. It has to be an emptying. And I think you are so able to do that emptying. Otherwise, you'd be sitting here enraged and revengeful and very ill.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean to say you don't have scars, spiritual, mental, physical too, but that emptying lets us be. It gives us more space, weirdly, to place things. I can put this here and this here and this here, so I have my situation in order. I can't do that if I'm not quite still, and that stillness is very important. That that's what the monks and nuns in the Middle Ages taught themselves to be still, not silent, but still.
Yeah, and that goes along with one of the greatest teachings that I will always share with my brother is know thyself.
Yes.
And another one that goes along with that is being comfortable with your self-presence.
Yes.
And a lot of people, even in there, they got to be real, real loud, even when they're in a cell, because they hate being alone. Yeah. They're running for something. Right. And I feel comfortable with Jonathan. Mm-hmm. I could be with Jonathan alone in a cell for months, because I know I've seen it now, and I was forced to. Right. Sometimes the cell wasn't with somebody else, and I had to acknowledge Jonathan and say, hey, I'm comfortable with you. Right. I'm not running from you no more. We're not running from nothing anymore now. It's like, now I enjoy it. Yeah. And I have to keep it a balance, because then I could also become secluded. You also want to keep it a balance where you also want to give back to the people that what you're learning, but I also can be left alone. Yeah. I could go in the same dark woods right now, be left in there for a while, and I'll enjoy it. Right. But also can be put in the middle of a crowd, just like the homecoming, and also embrace that.
Exactly.
So a lot of people would ask me, are you an introvert or extrovert? I was like, bro, I actually feel like I'm both. Yeah. But when it's necessary, they're like, oh, that's impossible. No. And I'm like, well, I feel like it's possible because I've lived it. So I got just, by being by myself, being comfortable with self-presence, then I can ask questions and reflect and acknowledge who I am, know myself. Where are you strong at? Right. Where are you weak at? When I make a mistake, then I have to be alone and reflect. Where did I go wrong? Why is it a trigger? Why is this a trigger? Right. Well, let's look back to the roots, because like I said earlier, you don't want to go with the weeds. No. You want to go with the roots. What is it? And then you start acknowledging yourself in ways where it's beautiful, like just life becomes much more enriched and beneficial.
Right. And then the contradiction is you can go out among the people around you and be much more productive and satisfied, and draw more from them that you can go off by yourself and think about it. Of course, you don't physically have to go off by yourself. You can sit quietly and manage that. And we need to teach our young people that.
Yeah.
We need to teach the 11-year-olds that, to be still. They're so filled up with blue screens and all kinds of media that they don't have any quiet moment.
I mean, we even got, I guess you could blame marketing,
Right.
and social media. We could blame the instant DoorDash. We got this, and marketing sells because we sell faster than the rest of the other people. Microwaves, air fryers, we get everything instant. But life's process a lot of times is not a lot of microwave. It's an oven.
And a very low oven at that.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes when you're moving so slow, and you're like, oh my God, like why is you not? And then the mistakes happen whenever you're trying to rush it.
That's right.
When you're trying to move faster than what it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
This is where the mentality comes in, where a lot of the guys that start selling drugs again, or after coming out, I don't see the money coming in fast, so I can easily go back and selling it, or get connected with certain correction officers that we know.
Right.
Because I know a whole bunch of them that if I wanted to, I'll reach out to them, make deals, and I'm getting by the thousands a week, and I could jump in high, fast leaps. But why don't I do that? Because I remember and remind myself that I'm not that person anymore. No. I want to feel good when I get $20, $40 over facing a weed eater with my own bare hands.
That's right.
And I feel as a man, I say, yes, I got that. But also, and so I won't forget, because we haven't really focused on that, I also do what I do for the victim who passed away. If his life was lost, if he would never come back, then it'll be a waste for me to come out here and do the same crap that I was doing. So in that context, I want to earn everything that happened. Somehow, some way, somehow, I can't bring them back. No. I can't. I do feel bad. I wish I could take it back. But as humans, we know that there's certain things that we're limited to. So I don't have that ability. But I ask God to save his soul, to help his family and give the family joy, and maybe even seek forgiveness, or not seek, but find forgiveness in their hearts for me. Yeah. Somehow, some way. And I would understand they don't. But I just pray for them. I can't say forgiveness really. But I'll say a peace that surpasses all understanding. He says that God is able to give peace that surpasses all understanding. That means that all understanding is even the anguish that they're going through for losing somebody. So I ask for the peace that could be given to them from a power that's above, way out of my control. But I just wanted to make sure I acknowledge that, so people won't think that I'm seeking pity for myself and look at me, boo-hoo. No, I'm saying, look, this is a reality of my life. This is what happened. This is my background. But let's intervene for the next children. So there won't be the next Jonathan or the next victim like mine, or the other victim that my old friend killed. I say friend, but he was a co-defendant now. Right. So it's a journey. It is. And I'm facing it face on, and I've been head on, and I'm going to continue going. I'm going to continue expanding, but with the intention to prevent, with the intention to intervene, to prevent, and then rehabilitate. Yeah. So in the end of the day, in the end of my life, or at least if it comes sooner, then I pray for that too. But my brother and I plan to make an academy. And this academy could actually reach out to and grab onto a lot of the children and basically take them in. And what I would specifically would like to teach is not only the basic things that the schools already teach, like public schools, but the things that public schools don't give out that I feel like they should have, more like philosophy. Yes. What about money management? What about economics, basic economics? Right. A little bit of politics. Because they're also going to be the next voters. That's right. And they need to decipher who's really going to be your leader and how is it going to affect your daily life. Yeah. Responsibility, manners. How are you going to walk in front of a woman and say nothing, you just bump into her? Like, that's not matters, or not only just a woman, but anybody. So it's, and this is the things that I want to give out to them that their parents in public schools are not giving to them, so I can intervene to prevent and then rehabilitate them for a better life.
Exactly.
And then that's not for my benefit, not for me, but for using my story and the story of my victims' family and their lives, and the people that the person that lost his life, and use all this, so it won't just be a waste, so it won't just be for nothing.
Right.
Now, do I have the right to say that? I don't know, but I'm just gonna this is what I want to do.
I think you do have. It's a sort of odd word to do. It may be that you have the duty to do that,
Yes.
and then you're given the right to do the duty. Does that make sense? We have the right. We have the right to do the duties that we need to do. And it doesn't erase anything, but it makes whatever has happened to have a significance, not prideful one, but a significance that touches, as you've already said very well, touches other people, so the significance grows as it touches many people. And I think you do have a right to say, this is where I want to go. Right? Yeah. And the parable of the farmer, he leaves all of his possessions in trust.
Oh yeah, the talents.
That's right. And his
It's another one
his employees are stealing from him, and he comes back and says,
what did you do with it?
"What did you do with it?" Yeah, and one says, "I was so afraid of you, I buried it in the dirt." And he says, "No, you have to use what you're given. Otherwise, you're condemned to live without it." That's the weird thing. You're condemned, I guess, or appropriate thing. You're condemned to live without what I gave you because you didn't use it.
And then what they do with the talents, they also give it to somebody else.
That's right.
If you don't want to have that responsibility, then somebody else will.
Somebody else.
And it's is that for a person that you were given certain gifts in life, or you were given something in life that you can use and multiply when it comes to, I believe, the people around you.
Oh, yes.
Because of the attention with God, that it's I can do so much in my life for others, but yet I could just be a secluded, or I could just say, you know what? I came out of prison. I'm already free. I'm just going to close the doors on everybody and just live my little happy life amongst my family, forget everything else, and just dig up those coins. But then what am I doing? What am I doing with the story? What am I doing with all the tears and the pain that I went through? What am I doing with the people that are still hurting now? It's and then what am I doing for the future generations that I can actually affect?
Exactly.
There's so much people and kids that are willing to hear somebody that's been in a rut.
Yes, that's right.
And now I'm able to provide that and say, look, this is what's going on. This is what you can be. But multiply, basically.
Exactly. And that's, you're very courageous to be doing that. And you may not know it, but God's given you some really good gifts in terms of how you talk about it too. So there's great power in that, I think. And the way the power gets bigger is you keep talking about it, because each time you talk about it, the words will shift slightly, and as that shifts, then what you're able to say is more, it reaches more, and it has more power. I mean, that's good.
And it just so happens that he was always using me to speak in front of hundreds of men, sometimes in front of church.
Yeah.
Sometimes I was just the verse speaker. I would get in front and read a verse. And at first I was all nervous reading the verse, and I'll go right back sitting down. And next thing you know, I'm over here reading a verse and explaining them certain things that I've been through that helped me out. Exactly. And then I'm giving my testimony in front of the most I've given is 500 people.
Good for you.
And I've looked at these men face to face, and I actually had a few of them reach out to me. It's dang, your story affected me. Right. And one-on-one conversations with a lot of guys too. And a lot of these guys will be the ones that you would typically walk around when you're walking the sidewalk with tattoos on their face, huge, way taller than me. They could move me with just nothing, but they were broken at that time. Yeah. And I just grabbed their hands and said, let's pray. So we started praying and encouraging them, and they would tell me I'm out of my game because of you. I said, how is it that you are not in a gang and doing what you do? And it's like, I just the determination of not only the vows, but it's just something in me now.
Yes.
And I can't explain it like in the inside. It's something in me now that it's almost like a fire. And I can literally do whatever I set my mind to. If I just tell myself, like right now in an hour, you know what, I'm gonna work out and do it, or make this, do this, and that, I'm gonna take initiative and do it. But back then I was lazy. Back then I wouldn't even get up. I wanted to play video games all day.
Right.
Now it's like I can watch a movie now knowing that I've just finished doing all kinds of stuff. Just fixed these lights. I just did this. I just got this much money over helping this person doing that.
Right.
And it's like, it's an amazing feeling.
I can do all things through God strengthens me.
It strengthens me.
That's right. It's,
I want to intrude and just thank you for how much you're a major part in the gear system, the clock, my clock, of partaking in the movement of trying to liberate Jonathan and all, like the entire process and all. Initially, so Jonathan, that was how he was talking about his influence and how he was giving me words of wisdom and all that.
Yeah.
That started the process of finding confidence in myself, right? And people along the way, working at Burger King, workers in the back and stuff like that, and just people believing in me and seeing things in me that I yet didn't see in myself. Like for instance, one of them, she told me, it was my last day there, working 9 months, I think, senior year. She's like, whenever you become someone great, hire me. I want to work under you. I want to be around you.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was like, it meant a lot, but I didn't even understand what she meant because I yet didn't see what she's seeing. And then on my journey at San Jack at the college and taking your class, your course, I was a terrible student. And then you forced me to actually try to write a report, to try. So then I started seeing like, okay, this is a creative skill too. Just like we're naturally good at art, right? We're somehow gifted at writing as well. And a lot of it has to do with putting in the work as well, right? So then that started my journey of trying to understand my role and what I wanted to do. And other professors, Nathaniel Wiggins, Sturge, Miss Keith, everybody that contributed to that and just allowed me to find myself. And then that's whenever that started the whole journey with Jonathan. So I started sharing our story on Facebook. It would go viral here and there. Like 2018 was the first time. And then we got published on the Houston Chronicle back in 2019. And I sent back to my successes, how they got into NASA research and stuff like that. And it just started formulating ideas, orchestrating just the same way when I think of a painting, I visualize, okay, like how can I structure something or use our story to eventually maybe want him to bring him home, you know? Because that moment when he got sentenced, I was on the other side, right? So I was outside and I heard mom screams and wails that went on. And I was 14 at the time when he got sentenced, so they didn't let me inside of the courthouse. So I was standing outside of the lobby area and my cousin came out. He was crying. And then I told him, I was like, well, how much time do you get? And he didn't want to tell me because he didn't think it was his place to tell me, you know? Now just tell me. And he said 15 years. And for me, it was like 15 years. I'm 14. I don't even know how.
I don't even know how to think about that.
Yeah. So then that feeling of like, okay, what can I do to try to bring him home? At the time, I was powerless. You have no way, right? No. But then the journey of his influence behind the power that he had as an older brother, as a person that's been a rebel, that where we come from, we glorify that. So he used that influence for good and started nurturing that because my dad kind of segued in the same direction of investing more time into work. And like that was his coping mechanism, right? But now we knew that. Now he knew that. Now my sister knew that my mom's depression was this and that. So they stepped in. They became my parent figures and nurtured that. So to eventually start formulating the plan, right? Whenever I went to go visit you, and you were telling me, you're like, I've been thinking about a project. You said, I want to find a way how we can influence students and how to use a creative mind into, I guess, developing a goal. And at the time, I didn't really see it yet, but now it's clear as day, right? Because now I see the product of what can happen, just like a painting.
Yeah.
So then that started the whole journey of the project, the podcast, recording that. But I was also balancing school and on, and then he was having a fallout. My siblings were going through their problems, my parents were going through their problems. So I'm just trying to be the backbone, trying to hold things together.
That's right.
And build it. And it took time. It took a lot longer than I anticipated. A lot of people ask how, like, people on TikTok and people that have family that are incarcerated, they ask for advice and like how to start a petition, how to build something. They think it just happened overnight. Like my sister, whenever she shared it, she said our stars aligned. People were like, no, he just got released from prison. Like, no, they don't know that he came out 3.5 years ahead of time.
That's right.
Because factors that led up to that moment, factors that took about 6 years, not even longer than that, to build up to the moment of, okay, releasing a petition. I finished editing everything, took me 8-9 months. Then we get 1,400 petition signatures around the community. This before it went like mega viral. So it's just everybody that's been connected with the story over years. And then at that time, I didn't know what to do with the petitions. I had no idea because nobody tells you. There's no proper guideline. But my sister, thankfully, she submitted a request to get a phone interview from a parole voter. And we've done that in the past. We followed proper court procedures of like getting a lawyer for parole and like everything, but none of that has ever worked. So I gave up on that. So I was like, let me just try the petition. Let me try the website. Let me try to move with the people, not with the proper court procedures. So then my sister, she ended up getting a call from the parole board. So my sister's she's a social worker. She has a master's in social work. She gets a call and the guy's asking her and she tells him everything. Like, this is Jonathan's story. This is the way he influenced Joshua. This is the petitions. And this is Jonathan's art. He's into poetry. And he had written a letter to himself
called Dear Younger Me.
Yeah.
Letter to himself called Dear Younger Me, forgiving himself for the pain that he caused to himself. And the parole board asked to fax everything to him, and within 24 hours, he got approved for parole. But it's a process that took from actually like thinking, sitting down and like initial steps of it, at least 6 years of sharing this story. Not in the beginning, it was been more about sharing it for the change of heart. But then I noticed that it built momentum and people became supporters and wanted to bring him home. Because not only was he saying that he was changing through letters, they seen the change through this little logo.
That's right.
Through change of accomplishments and purpose. So that was the whole thing with our battle between whenever he was falling off, like he wanted to come home ASAP, which I wanted him to come home too. But I was like, whenever I met these advocates about prison reform and stuff, I was like, oh, Jonathan's just a small battle to his entire war. Our story can be used for the greater good, or it can just be used to try to bring him home. But if I just bring him home, how can it get to the masses?
Right.
It was easy for me to see it like that because I'm not behind the walls, right? I could be patient.
Right, yes.
I'm also a perfectionist and stuff like that, so that played a factor as well. So then, but eventually we agreed on following the same journey together, and then understanding that it could happen. Because it was very discouraging with everybody, like my mom, my parents, because I was taking a lot of the time away from work and my school. After all of my classes that semester, I got behind by 1.5 years from graduating. My dad was mad at me. He was like, you're that's not important. What are you doing? Like, just do that. And he started becoming discouraging because he started falling off, right? So the person that I'm trying to build this house for is tearing it down. And then everybody's going through depression, my sisters and stuff. So then it's like, this can happen. I can see it. Just hold on. Like, wait a minute. Just be patient with me. And now he's home. Now I'm graduating. I graduated in 6 days. So it's just a blessing,
Yeah, it's wonderful. You are so blessed to be involved with Nate Wiggins.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was he had some magic that in integrity, and then also in the capacity to see possibilities in students that many ignored.
Yeah.
And I mean, he would take students who really knew nothing about everything actually, and he would hand them cell phones, and he'd say, make this work. and then figure out why that 3D printer over there doesn't work, and leave. And then sit there. I officed right across from their lab for many years, and I'd see them, and they're sitting there, well, we don't have to do this. And then finally somebody would say, well, I got mine to work. Did you get yours to work? And he was watching the whole time, but he did not ever appear to be. And then when things got serious and they were doing the grants for NASA, then he stepped, very openly in. But they built a artificial hand, didn't they, for a child that had lost one with that crappy. I mean, it was a piece of crap 3D printer, and they figured out how to make the cell phones talk to it, and then how to get parts in, or how to use the parts that were kind of sort of likely to work. And of course, the hand had to match exactly here, and it did. And so he sent many students got them involved with NASA and how to write technical reports and how to just think the way they need to think.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I was taking Ms. Dinwiddie's class, where she's actually in the living room. Yeah. And he walked in. This is a dude dressed in clothes that you wouldn't see a professor dressed in.
No, I know.
And talking about all this NASA stuff and turning off fire in space using sound and all these crazy stuff that I had never been introduced to, right? I'm 19 at this point. I had never met an engineer or anybody that's really professional aside from professors that I just began taking classes with. And then it just became, I was like, at that time I had no idea what I wanted to do in my life. I started with art and then biology, but let me take this guy's class. So I take his Calculus 1 class. And then he's going on about all this NASA stuff. A lot of it sounds far-fetched. But I'm like, no, he seems like a trustworthy dude. I'm gonna give it some time. And then I started going to his robotics class and getting involved and just spending a lot of time there.
The magnet hit you, didn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Go.
Yeah, that became. I was like, okay, this is. And then I started doing the whole technical writing research and traveling, going to Oklahoma, competing in robotics, and just getting really involved. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And Wiggins is what keeps me going, because Clear Lake, my experience at my university, hasn't been that great compared to San Jac and what that's been. So that's my definition of okay, that's what I'm trying to get back to. That's right. Let me just get this system out the way, and then I'll proceed. Yeah. But people like him, people like Sturgill.
Yes. Yes.
It's key that I took my first class. I got a 38 in their college algebra class. And Sturgill took me outside the class. He's like, what's going on? I was like, man, I cheated my way from 7th to 12th grade. I know nothing about math. He was like, you got the lowest grade in the entire class. Go to the tutoring center, get help from me, get help from the tutors. So then I started going. And then a year later, then I started tutoring. Then I became the tutor. And
we all noticed that.
It was just amazing. And then you and all of that, and just constant work and y'all being there and us having those conversations, towards the end of my time at San Jac. I would see you at least once a month, and we'll just sit down and you'll ask about how life is going, how that's going with my brother. You helped me write. We've written so much that you helped me part of the process of trying to bring you home. So it's just been a constant journey of people playing a role in what a village should be.
Yes. Yeah.
And even people that are no longer around, people that have passed on, or people that I haven't seen, they just play a factor in the thoughts, and my next decision is okay, I'm not going to do that because, that's how I would disappoint my sisters or something like that. Right. So it's always that everybody becomes part of you. Right. You're on just the biographies you read. They become part of you. It's like USB ports that just get plugged in, and we're all one.
That's whatever you're missing. Way to say it there. USB ports.
Where you're missing that village. Yeah. It's it's impossible. And then you get cases like where Jonathan was. But that's where you had asked me the question of how do you inspire kids that are so not driven? And you see all these kids that are more like zombies just going through college because they have to go to college. And it's that's not necessarily the way that you always have to go. I don't want to make it seem like that's the...
No. But they're certainly not like a zombie.
Yeah. Right. But I think part of it is just everybody playing a role and understanding how big of importance they are, even if they're a small percentage, like our nephews, our nieces, and that little "I love you." might mean way so much more to them.
Right.
So it's just necessary to put in that work and invest in relationships and family and all. But people don't see that or don't get taught that.
Yeah.
So we have to just learn that and teach that for the next generation.
We don't want to. The investment is extraordinarily expensive. And because time is the most precious thing we have. Once not like I'm investing this afternoon. Well, it's gone. You know, I'm not going to get this Sunday back. No.
Yeah, you're wasting it with us.
I know.
I'm just kidding.
No.
So she actually...
I'll poke him in the eye. But
she's been living right by North Shore High School for how many years?
well, we owned our home 50. We moved into our home in 69.
Yeah, so she's more from Cloris than we are from Cloris.
Oh, yeah.
That's right, yes.
So she was familiar with that, what happened.
Maybe not specifics, but she's known what happens in that community.
Oh, yeah.
What has been your perspective of seeing the change of the first year there to now?
Well, it's strange because it's been a gain and a loss. Initially, when we moved in, the builders, the people are building tract houses, and we couldn't afford the very best one, so we got the second best builder, but that was good. And we could sit out on our driveway and watch the deer at the end where Haymarket is right now. Come out in the just before dawn. And people who moved in, we knew each other's names. Someday somebody got sick, we were there. We knew and we helped. And that has degenerated. We've lost that. And we live in the same houses side by side for years and years and don't necessarily know anything about anybody. And we're concerned about telling anybody something because they might rob me then or something. It's a huge loss.
Yeah.
But that may be diminishing a little bit, and I hope it is. I hope it is because we need to go back and understand the neighbor. But I think the neighborhood's holding precariously. But life is precarious. You know that life is precarious, and you found out that when Wiggins told you, he says, "I got some kids." He would call me and say, "What are you doing?" I'm good. Not working with you. That's what I'm doing. Well, I got some kids down there at their daughter's lab, and they had made the biggest mess of this proposal or whatever it was, y'all. He said, "Now, you can't go down there and write it for them." Yes, I know that. Thank you, Nate. And so he's just amazing in how he identified, and they would never be the people you thought.
Yeah.
And you go in there and look, and the place was a mess. It had boxes of it was neat, it was orderly, but it was just stuff. And I said, "What in the hell is going on over there?" I said, "Well, magic. Nate Wickens' magic. That is strange magic, is there?" But it was just saying, "Here, work on this, see what you find." And see, that's it right there. See what you find. And you found that. Here's a biography, see what you find. Mm-hmm. And unless you do it that way, change doesn't happen. Because when Jesus was walking around, he didn't talk to the rich people. He talked to the woman at the well who had been married 6 times, which basically meant she was sort of a prostitute, because they only married once. And so he says, "Can you give me a glass of water?" What? I'm not going to, you're a Jew, you're not going to talk to a Samaritan, I'm not going to do that. And she had come at noon because she was unsatisfactory, she was unacceptable. And that was the only time she could come to the well, was at noon. Everybody else came early in the morning, the respectable people. And so he chose to sit down there at noon, and the disciples came back and they said, "What are you talking about?" And so she was the first missionary.
If I could just give out one more words, it's to people to be aware of those children around you.
Yes.
Be aware of not even only the children. I mean, even an adult. Just knowing that maybe that adult has that inner child that never reached that. So maybe be aware, intervene, and then to prevent. Prevent what? To the next crime, the next child that goes inside of school and takes out about 5 to 20 kids, or even the teachers. Reach out to prevent also robberies, murders, drug sales, all the above. Basically crime. And it's not just crime that I focused on, it's also just being locked up mentally. So finding out yourself, know thyself, and the more you know yourself, it's like the more free you become, and the more you're able to do the things that you were meant to do. So that will be my wording for those who are listening, and myself more than anything else, and my brother as well.
Yeah, I think we have to keep saying that to ourselves. The voices are loud around us.
All right, guys. Thank you all for your time. And like I said in the previous podcast, the idea for this podcast was just to simply share our story, to try to bring my brother home. And then along the journey, it became a lot more important. And now with this viralness of it and our platform, now it's kind of become a calling to do our part in sharing other stories of our friends that have experienced similar stories, some of our friends' innocence, just being a voice for the incarcerated, but most importantly, a voice for the victims, a platform for the victims where we can just find empathy and understanding behind each other's story instead of just focusing so much on revenge. I know it's a tough thing to discuss and talk about, but I think the most important things in life to me are justice, love, and empathy. I think the next phase will be to register Free J-Rod as a nonprofit and start registering for grants to be able to fund this and organize an editing team that will be able to help amplify our voice and multiply our voice by outputting way more content like this, content from the heart and stories that deserve to be told. And I think through these grants, we will be able to achieve this, because Jonathan is still getting up to date on technology and trying to understand and learning how to edit and stuff. But it all takes time and it consumes a lot of time. And I think if we put our focus on the stories and these conversations, we can be a lot more impactful than dedicating our time to the whole editing side of it. I don't know. I really look forward to what will come of this. As of now, my plan's not to dedicate my whole life to this podcast. So I have a lot of interests and ideas and ways that I can still make an impact, but in different art mediums. And I think this is just one of them. So Jonathan and I will continue to do this, and follow us on social media, Free J-Rod everywhere. Yeah, just thank you for this time. Thank you for your time and encouragements and all of that. It's just been very inspiring. It's been a humbling experience being able to achieve something like this.